and every time we try to put it into some sort of structure, all we get is this beautiful silence and just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And all we felt like we wanted to do was just to share our wisdom and our knowledge and our perceptions and our musings in a very conversational way. And if people wanted to just listen, that's fine. If people want to join in, that's fine. And just see where that takes us, rather than have a very prescriptive.
We were starting off to write a course about plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the initial idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we seldomly talk about plants.
in odd little ways, but the communication sparks very interestingly. So after we talked about the crows, we talked about crows, and I had to put an apple out for the crows. Well, crows didn't come, but the currawongs moved into my backyard the very next day. There was like 6 or 7 of them on my roof and on my barbecue and all around. They'd moved into the area over summer, early summer, but I'd never seen them. And then the next morning after that, they were in the next door neighbour's garden, and then here. It's just like they were all about. So that was very interesting.
It's funny, I have the same experience here.
Yeah.
It started off with the crows, and since that moment, was it last week?
Yeah.
I'm so much more aware of all the other birds that live here as well. And yes, there are crows. And I'm not sure if there are many more birds than what used to be. Probably we are more aware since there's less outside noise and less traffic, so we can hear them now. Or maybe I'm more into the bird frequency and ready to perceive and receive them. And yeah, something similar is going on as well here. So fun.
So one of the things that we've been talking about, Kim, that's been really coming forward, which is probably one of the reasons why you're here, is about connecting the grids. And it was the crow grids that had come up, but it's the little micro grids and the micro connecting, as well as the larger, the reaching out to people that we wouldn't usually have the confidence to, or the reaching out to people that are slightly out of our sphere, to connect those grids, which is how Eliza and I started chatting. And that push to continue that, and that's part of why it's important for it to be relaxed and conversational, because it's like what we're being asked to do is really natural, even though it feels really weird. It feels outside of our sphere, of our comfort zone, but it's really not. It's like, oh, I couldn't talk to that person. Well, actually not. There's so many people that would completely receive that communication, and that connection is already there. So it just needs to be, it's like the final little conscious communication can be made so easily. And I feel that's very much part of the influence, or what this group is meant to be doing. And I think that's really the underlying theme or message that came from your original post, Eliza. Even though it was talking to a tree, the underlying thing was connecting Mrs. Bramley and all the other trees, and then connecting people to the trees. It's that connection that is the at the core of it.
What the Bramley tree told me in our original conversation is that the longing to have connections and speaking to friends far away. Modern human technology makes it harder for trees to have that connection. And since human bodies can travel, I was asked to bridge like the in-between stations in a telephone grid, like the switch boxes. And the ask was for me and my friends to be those kind of switch boxes for the trees. And it was an enormous response from people and trees alike. And since that, I've been playing with more. And one of the things you probably don't know about me yet is that I communicate with everything or single thing that consists of earth molecules. And I get sometimes and more often paid for telepathic communication with pets, with animals. And recently I had a conversation with a dog, and it showed me her favorite tree. And then it dawned on me like, oh, of course there's a connection between trees and dogs. And could those be two separate grids? And what if we find a way to connect the doggy grid with the tree grid? So there's more an intermingling of information, and dogs travel, they do their walks. So what if the dogs could be conduct for tree information as well? And what if trees can be mailboxes, the female is already there, to also convey the tree information via the dogs and vice versa. And that changed a lot. And I've been playing with many kinds of grids. And that led to the question, well, what is a tree without birds?
Yeah.
And that brought us to the crows, and now we're here.
Yeah.
So
Kind of
what's
opens
next?
up the ideas of all sorts of grids occurring in, endless possibilities of grids, really.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's really important. That's the really important concept to really start to wake up in people, because people have a concept of a grid, not a complex network of grids that actually make up the whole, which feeds into a conversation that we had several months ago about, because Kim and I always thought we were on the same grid, and then every time we'd try and do stuff, it just wouldn't work. And then we realized, I had this that there's different layers of even like the human grid, and it's like our grids sort of connect, but they're not necessarily on the same
Frequency.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, now that I'm playing with those grids and possibilities within that more than before, I've come to look at it as the mycelium. Like this is, or the fascia maybe, but yes, more the mycelium in a way that things interconnect anyway and intersect anyway and touch and then split again. And
I think that analogy to the fascia is beautiful too, because it's like if you pull on your little toe, on the fascia on your little toe, you know, it can make your neck, you have a sore neck because your fascia in your little toe got tightened.
Yeah.
You know, how it's all completely.
Yeah, that's why my osteopath pulls on my ears when I'm there for my back problems.
Yeah.
It's my mind doesn't understand, but my body reacts. So there is something going on.
Yeah. So this was really just an invitation of putting out there to continue to expand that connection in a conscious, joyful, comfortable way, like friends, like to shift it out of this realm of shoulds and to make it full of joy.
And I like the way that anyone can connect immediately. There's no special skill or talent that anyone needs to have necessarily. It's just being called to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we even consider to call this a tea party. Just like you would come together with friends and have those totally random conversations until 3 in the night, and then say, "Oh, that was fun, but what did we talk about?"
Yeah.
And especially now, with being connected is different nowadays. And thank God for the internet still working.
Yeah.
And what are the possibilities of just connecting with friends and new friends and old friends and meeting new people and have those random until 3 o'clock conversations, not remembering what we talked about, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Isn't that what's required now more than ever?
Yeah. When we first conceived of the idea, it didn't make quite as much sense as it does right now.
And how many hours have we talked yet?
Eliza and I have been talking weekly.
Yeah.
Since January.
I remember you saying, Bianca, when you first started having these conversations, that you would just blink and 3 hours had gone past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just get like, I'm not sure, but I think we should just get together and talk to people. I'm like, how do we just like, oh, okay, well, like, why don't we just say that's what we're doing rather than try to make it something different? It's just, and how many beautiful healings and how much beautiful wisdom has come up. It's like, it's just been amazing. Yeah. So yeah, in that ability just to share, you know, share your journey in a way that we don't always have a free and easy and accepting and loving space to share the kind of weird stuff in. Like my apple dream, which had I not shared it, I would have totally missed how awesome it was. I would have just gone, you're nuts. An apple's holding open a portal for you in your dream.
Yeah, or a cat telling you there's something wrong in your bathroom.
Yeah. 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 So I think it's really important for people to have a space where they can come and share that stuff that's just a little bit left of center, or that's a very cliche thing. It's just a little bit outside the normal realms of perception that people would automatically dismiss as not making sense at all, so that we can actually bring that wisdom through. Like your Kim's been bringing some stuff through recently.
Pictorial things.
Yeah. And having a space to be able to share that into, or share that, like just a different space, you know, space to, you had a space to share that into, but just a space to share. Because even though it might feel uncomfortable, it's really important for us to start talking about this stuff as normal, whilst being completely grounded. If anything is to change in the world out there at large, we have to feel comfortable talking about it. We have to be able to fully get the wisdom from our insights and to be able to share that.
And most importantly for me at last, to acknowledge to me that this is what I perceive. This is a dream I had. This is a vision I have. This is a sensation in my body that my mind cannot explain, but it is here. And it is true for me now. And to recognize and acknowledge that, That's for me. It's big.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what can you describe what pictorial is for you, Kim?
I guess I've been bringing through some light codes. It's maybe the language that would be used.
We need new words, don't we?
Yeah. So just, well, Bianca got her friend to draw me this amazing, I don't know, diagram, light code. I don't know if you can see that. And opening this up and gazing at that and sleeping overnight, and then it just unlocked something within me.
Beautiful.
And then I started sitting down and doing my own drawings. You know, I guess in my style, but being aware of having a push to get them out, yeah, and which I can relate to. I'm a musician as well, and when I feel like there's a song coming, I have that same kind of push, like sit down at the piano and out comes a song. It's that kind of, I don't know, things are ready and it pours out. So yeah, I've been doing quite a few of those, creating those images since the start of last month, which has been pretty cool. And sharing them with Bianca in one of her groups that she set up as well, which is good, and feeling a little bit more relaxed about sharing things too. The more you do,
I totally get it.
easier it gets, I guess. And so then the last post I'd put into that group was a song that I sang while I was at the beach last weekend, that was very much about release and letting go of old stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been pretty interesting, to just trust and not question what I'm doing as being right or wrong, and just allowing it to come out. And then beyond that, more than that, taking that extra step and sharing it.
It's interesting how everybody I talk to seems to have this perception of, I love doing this, or there's music and drawings and whatever it is for everybody, and not wanting to share it as if we all have decided this, what is so me on the inside, is too weird. I can't talk about it. It will be dismissed at least and probably judged. So I won't talk about it.
It feels like we're still not very good at being vulnerable. And the work's so honest that you feel vulnerable sharing it.
Yeah.
Something about that as our society, or
it's interesting having the insight of speaking to people in a private setting, where people can share their vulnerability, and it's interesting to see just how much of the population have these experiences but would never ever contemplate sharing them out into the public because it's weird. And I'm trying to think who it was. I'm thinking it was Rupert Sheldrake, but I can't, it might not be. But there's a scientist that was going around to universities in America, doing this talk. I'm pretty sure it was Rupert Sheldrake, and it was about telepathic communication with animals, the talk that he was doing. And he said that at every place afterwards, at least 3 or 4 professors would come up to him and go, oh, thanks so much for coming to do that talk. You know, I have those experiences too. I could never talk to my workmates about it because they'd all think I was nuts. And he'd go, there would be at least 4 people in each department that would all say that there was no one that they could talk to because everyone would think that they were strange. And yeah.
I think that's why we feel it's important without being significant to put these conversations out there to let people know at least you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And times are changing. We can talk about this stuff freely now. And since we're all in our own place with quite a large distance in between, it feels like the friendship and the closeness and the safety of literally being confined in our own space right now. And so much things change. And for me, I really like to be the invitation to others to open up to what's true for them. And for all the others who say or think or maybe don't have experiences like we do, hearing so many more people talk about it, like the professor you just told about, I hope to have at least a few people think, maybe there is more. Maybe I could someday for 2 seconds look into that when I feel courageous. Yeah. And maybe that's kind of planting seeds. And if so, seeds will grow someday.
And how much more wonderful is the experience of life when those things are awake. I remember asking that to go away at one point in my early 20s because it was rapidly expanding and developing to the point where I couldn't actually talk to someone normally, and I've got to tone this down a bit and I asked it to go away, and it did completely, and I was mortified. I'm like, is this how people perceive the world? Is this how like we're supposed to, like the common the right words. So it's the projected consciousness. It's not the people that it's not the common consciousness, but it's the projected sense of commonality or what is common to experience. And I was just going, it was quite disturbing, and it was horrendous. I'm thinking back to that time where I didn't have access to the more mystical aspects of our world on a daily basis, and things are so flat. This is any wonder why people feel so flat if they can't open into those realms. And I believe that a lot of anxiety is about knowing that exists, yet not being able to fully access those realms. So you get stuck in between these two states where you're operating in the common consciousness, yet knowing this mystical consciousness exists. But how do we bridge into that and meld that into our day-to-day life in a way that is grounded and aligned? Because so many of the role models that we've got for that is anything but that.
And for me, without the mystical and the weird stuff, I'd be bored. I don't think my life would be fun without that.
No. Well, look at how many people think life is not fun. I mean, the amount of antidepressant, I don't know what it is now. I know that 20 years ago, in a small suburban shopping centre that serviced, I'd be guessing, but what was the population 20 years ago of Narre Warren and Endeavour Hills? What, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 people? Well, maybe more. it'd be a random guess, I don't know, but a small suburban shopping centre. There was 2 pharmacies in there, and the shopping centre, that the pharmacy sold 16 boxes of antidepressants and 2 boxes of antipsychotics a week.
That's a lot.
And I don't want to like take it down that path at all. And I'm not trying to say that medicine doesn't have a place, but how much of those, some of those people taking that medication taught me almost everything I know about how the mystical mind works. It's like, because these people were living in an environment that was completely detached from any of the new age spiritual influence, yet here were these people talking to me in confidence about the most incredibly mystical experiences they were having, and yet thinking that these needed to be suppressed or kept down, or had no way to express them. And as soon as I gave them a forum to just discuss them, all of their mental health problems went away. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to happen to everybody, and that's not, you know, there's a lot on the spectrum, but there's an awful lot of people that are going to, just by talking, just by having a forum to be free with who they actually are going to have amazing healing. Gosh, I didn't know I was going to talk about that. Not on my list.
Everything's connected.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I can relate to that. When I was in my 20s, I had 2 or 3 years that I took antidepressants, and it didn't help. And I turned so much more inward, and there was such, in my perception, a bigger distance between me and the rest of the world. And it was the reason that I took antidepressants, because of my perception of distance, in the sense that I could not understand how people live and think, and I could not express how I live and think in my dreams and desires. And there was a distance in that. And that was, I now think, misinterpreted as being a depression. So I had to take antidepressants because that's the way things work in the old reality. And I felt like a zombie. Like there was this nothingness. Okay, granted, there were less episodes of deep sadness, but also there were no more episodes of joy. Like yesterday, I saw right across the street, there were some birds bathing in a body of water. And I so enjoyed being able to see that. And it's quite a distance. And I noticed, and I enjoyed watching, and I was so grateful that I could perceive that was going on and being able to look at it. And those are the things that now make my days more fun. And during the medication time, the nothingness. There were days I really had to think, okay, left foot stands, raise the knee, right leg, bend the knee, move the leg forward, place the foot on the floor, and shift weight. Fast forward 30 years, I am so grateful I had the courage back then to stop the medication, which was a struggle in and of itself. It was so addicting that my body was totally out of order with reducing medication. I had to fight for over a year to get rid of the medication inside my body. And am I glad I did. And I wish that for many more people.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it was a big one back then.
Yeah. I'll just say that our conversation, like any conversation, is totally unscripted. We have had we have only had our previous conversations as a thing. So yeah, everything that's sharing is just what is coming up in our sphere. So yeah, thank you so much, Eliza. That's
even though we have a topic list.
We do have a topic list. Yes. I even have one that I prepared before. But I think that just goes with the just checking that wasn't someone going, hey, can I come? Yeah, just with the conversation, but yeah.
Well, I guess we perceive what's going on around us, or one topic leads to another, like a conversation with friends till 3 in the night.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this. And we spoke before about creating something more or less official, businessy, money-making thing. And it just doesn't seem to work that way between me and Bianca. And we spoke before about our mental allergies to how marketing should be done, and dreaming up your
I probably share that.
dreaming up your ideal client, which is for me exclusion. What if someone who doesn't perfectly fit the box of what I have decided should be an ideal client for me, which excludes them from the information me and Bianca and Kim are sharing in a random conversation, would be perfect for that person in that time. Yeah. And they can't because they are not my ideal client.
Well, I think it comes to the fact that we know that there's connections that need to be made, but you can't actually start to, and that's what our main job is at the moment, is making those connections and forming those links. And it's like if I go back 10 years, Kim, to the fact that we knew that these links needed to be made, but we didn't have any idea how they were supposed to be made or how to make it from that realm that we popped into and saw that it needed to happen into the physical world. And I feel for the first time that I'm starting to see how it needs to happen in the physical world. But we can't make any assumption as to who that person might be that needs to make the connection, because they're not necessarily going to fit into the box of someone who talks to a tree. Even though they may end up talking to a tree, they may absolutely have no idea why they're sitting at their computer with their briefcase or mourning the fact that they can't go to work at the moment and sit. And they may actually have no idea that that is who they will very soon be. And so it's like, how do we reach those people? And the only way we can do that is by talking to people and then asking people to talk to people, or to go, oh, hey, you might be interested in chatting, or there might be something in this that you get something out of this. Like every time there's a conversation, there might be one little subject that comes up that's relevant for a person to pass that little package of information onto. Let's go, here's your little package. And that person goes, oh, and it might not even be them. That person might go, oh, and they listen to the thing, and there might be something else in our discussion that they go, oh, so and so would really be interested in that, and to pass that on. And it's that having that courage to go, here, you might be interested in this. I keep thinking about that reading that I did about striking up random conversations with people in the street. And when that came out of my mouth, I can't remember if it was at the end of our meditation class or if it was in just a reading I did for the group, but I remember it very clearly because I remember the image in my mind of talking to this person on the street corner. And I'm like, so you're really just asking people to start talking to strangers on the street corner? I'm not sure that's going to go down so well, particularly to people in the cities. But it keeps coming to my mind about how important that is to have the courage just to pass on whatever that communication is that comes up into our awareness. And it might be just like this different from passing it on, but it might be just as simple as complimenting someone on their top, you know, just a little, you know, because you never know what change that's going to make. So if you compliment someone on the top and they're feeling better about themselves and they're looking up and they happen to look across and see that bird, and then they see a rainbow or see the sun in a particular color, and that shifts them into a state of joy, it's like the flow-on effects from that at the moment are so important for us not to hold back, because like for so long that holding back of communication has been the norm for people with sight or insight, and we have to change that. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to say things that people are just going to go, what? Or you're going to get yourself into a little bit of hot water trouble sometimes as you learn. But it's okay, because it's so much more important to make that conversation and to keep those conversation channels open, and you just don't know what's going to come out of them at what stage.
It's like the flow needs to ripple out in an organic way.
Yeah.
And not carving out the canal for the water to flow. It's just water flows. It does anyway. So why stop it?
So I'm going to put a call out there to any of those, or to all those people in South America that are listening, because South America keeps coming to my consciousness so much. It's so important in this connection. Anyway, don't know anything more than that, but that's every time we have this conversation, or I have this conversation about connection, South America comes up. And maybe that's because I've had those lines of communication have already been planted on that level, on that take a risk, make a communication. But it actually feels greater than that. So yeah, I'll say hi, because I know there will be some people listening, because I know they said they were going to come, or they were interested in coming.
Yay.
So yeah, they'll be listening to the replay. So say hi, reach out. Allow that communication to continue to develop, to morph, to evolve into what it needs to.
And isn't it great that we don't have to work it out with our minds?
Yeah.
What it is, where it flows to, who will receive it.
Yeah. Because it's impossible. Like it's not possible for our little weeny minds to work it out. Yeah. Which I feel flows into this whole business of the ability just to become really simple at the moment to really come in and simplify everything. It's like we need to simplify as much as we can in our life at the moment, in all aspects, so that that mind can become less cluttered, less. It's like the more simple we can make our life, the quieter the mind is going to become by default. The quieter the mind becomes, the more space there is for the other consciousness, I guess, or there is space to start to hear that inner dialogue that comes from the soul or the inner self rather than from the mind. Yeah. So, what about themes for your week? What's been happening in terms of themes for the energy of the week?
Well, for me, it is about space and the space in between thoughts, and indeed the simplifying, observing what's going on outside, and knowing that, yes, I'm part of it, and I'm in that. For me, it's not even about being fearful anymore. It wasn't anyway. And I know it affects some people, and I'm sorry for them. And for me, it's like this time off, like simply being at home and enjoying the weather. I sound probably weird for this, but I'm so grateful that I don't even have a job to go back to. And knowing that things will be okay. I have the weirdest dreams, and some of them are beautiful. And so I'm writing a lot, and for me the theme is back to normal. What was normal? Do I even want that? And dreaming up my new normal.
Yay.
Which also for me means less time online, less of the, what I tend to call bullshit. And I can sense all those marketing companies dreaming up the next wave of commercializing the heck out of everything for when this is over.
Quick, get back into buying.
Yeah.
Hurry. Spend,
yeah.
spend.
And the stupidity of buying socks from China, as if there is no grandmother here that can knit socks anymore, which are the better ones as well.
Yes.
The stupidity of all that gets clearer and clearer. And what space can I be to at least, well, hopefully totally stop the stupidity, but at least slow it down, and to not have people go back to normal. Like, who wants to be stuck in traffic for 2 hours a day? Are we willing? Do we really want to go back to that? Well, I'm not.
No. I have been recognizing just how wasteful I have been even in my non-waste life. You know, I have always been pretty, DIY and reuse it where I can. But it's interesting how even I spent the day, I turned Miller's, which I haven't done for quite some time because of time, I guess. I haven't had time to, so I she'd grown out of a dress and ripped it, so I turned it into a skirt, and it's a beautiful skirt. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And she'd grown out of 3 pinafores, and I turned them into overalls for Luca, and they fit perfectly. So, and I'm like, this guy's like, what are we going to do with these? I'm taking them to the op shop. I'm like, well, the op shops are all shut, so you may as well just throw them in. You can't, why would you throw it in the bin? They're perfectly fine. And they are the most awesome overalls. And it took me all of about half an hour to turn 3 pinafores into 3 pairs of overalls. And I've got very fast. I spun a whole ball of wool from fleece today. So I carded it and spun it. So I will go and finish my second slipper for my fleece to slippers for the last 2 days. That's what I'm finding. It's like all these things that I have put off that will bring me more comfort in my own home, in my own space, that I've put off because I don't have the time. It will be too much effort and too much energy. In the last 4 weeks, what I've achieved in our house and home would have taken me over a year to do in other time. It's just that change of focus. And it's like recognizing how much our focus is out there and not where we live, where we spend our time. Like I've often questioned that in myself, because in the past my clinic would be pristine and yet my house would be a shambles. And I'm like, much to, Sky would always be trying to not make it a shambles and keeping some parts of it very clean so he can be staying. But I'm like, why is it that I can have that like that, but for myself, I don't have that energy? So recognizing that there's been a misalignment in where the energy is directed and directing the energy back to here. Or here in the mother space, like that shaped space rather than a that shaped space. And it's taken about 4 weeks to get that focus. And there's been an intense amount of frustration in shifting into that, like still having that split. And I've really recognized that the frustration that my children cause me is when my attention is not, when it's focused outside of my space. Now, we should never really have our attention focused outside of our space. But it was interesting because I often get quite, I don't know, anxious, if that's the word. Yeah, probably anxious about doing online work at night. Like I'll think about it during the day. But the really lovely thing about this was I kept trying to think about it, and the inner voice was just like, just don't worry about it. Just think about it being a completely normal day. It's like you don't prepare for a phone call with a friend. You don't need to prepare for this. It shouldn't take you out of your life. It is part of your life. You need to be fully in it. So that's been a really interesting shift. And then the level of frustration just drops like to negligible. I won't say that it's 0 when you've got a 2-year-old trying to help you spin, but but it's just really interesting that we'll go. I've got here, actually, that's funny. I didn't know how they were going to fit into. I drew some cards beforehand to prepare, and the 2 cards that came up were frustration and instruction. So there you go. I fit it in very nicely. And it was instruction. It was about instructing children, like passing on knowledge, instructing children. So anyway, there you go.
Beautiful. We've been talking for an hour again already.
It took me a while. It took me a while to forget that it was a different thing, and just to get over it's new and find the new dynamic. And then once I did that, then the time just disappeared. What about themes in your world, Kim? Did you feel like sharing themes in your world?
Yeah, well, I've been working and adjusting to this whole new situation for the last 3 weeks, but I'm on day 3 of a 10-day holiday now, and chose to take this whole week off because I very much felt like I just wanted to be at home, choosing what to do. And what do I really feel like doing now, or noticing what I might clean and tidy because that will make me feel good, or that kind of stuff. What might I bake, or which pot plants need my attention or would like my attention now. So flowing more so than having a set list or a set amount of time to complete a task before I have to get to the next thing. I've had a couple of lovely walks, and I actually went to the nursery today. Maybe that wasn't essential travel, but purchased a lemonade lemon tree to
Food.
plant.
It was food.
It was food, that's right. Food for the future investment, that's planted on a block of land now, and repotted some flowers, and finished my crochet project that has been on the go for 6 months or something. So that's felt very satisfying. I'm just enjoying actually the fact that both my daughters have been really happy since they stopped going to school. Not that, and one particularly is always happy. She's just very resilient. But the other one has been really, really great, really happy, really calm. And those two have been getting on really well. So there's not been that tension in the house, which has been one. And really interesting. And it just occurred to me that, I didn't realise how much of a trigger school is for her. But it really does seem to be. She brings that home, and then she lets it all go out on us, and I understand that, but that can be hard to wear too. So that's been very pleasant for everyone. And, and we as a family, Friday night, Eliza, both my daughters are teenagers, and came and I was going to bed, and they came and jumped in bed, and we chatted and laughed and shared stories for an hour and a half, way past bedtime. And it was just, so that connection, we're all feeling much more connected from, just removing those external pressures, or distractions, or focus, and just being allowed to, which is, or feeling, that's a funny thing, but it feels like that we're allowed to focus in and in our little circle, which is great. So I'm feeling grateful for that, definitely.
I bet, yes. Probably the greatest gift of these times.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're aware of it too. They both made comments and said, that was so much fun, and we're all getting along so well. It's good. It's good.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
It's wonderful, because things had been,
Yeah, we've had some moments, definitely very difficult moments for everyone.
As you do with teenagers, but that's really nice. Awesome.
It makes me think how much of those unpleasant moments with teenager come from outside. Like if we grown-ups hesitate to speak our truth and talk about what's on our minds. And I remember being a teenager trying to fit in where I didn't fit at all. wearing clothes that were not comfortable or expressing who am I, because those were the norm at the time, or fashionable or whatever. I had the 1980s perm with the big hair. And look at me now, my hair cannot do that. And that was before internet. That was before, well, I think propaganda has always been on the television. And with the modern technologies, it's more so than ever. And how to, with a partially developed, not yet mature brain, how to digest all that information and find out how and where you fit into all of that, or how and where all of that fits into you. I'm happy I'm not a teenager anymore. At least my body's over 50, so probably my brain has matured, I guess.
You're one of those very special, rare ones where it just stays forever useful.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go back to my 20s.
No, I love where I am now. I did a timeline, a mandala. It was like a cross between a Steiner life cycles workshop and a mandala workshop. And I actually had a lot of fun in my 20s. When I went, had forgotten how much fun it was to not give a fuck. So if I could go back to my 20s with the wisdom that I had now, I don't know if it would work. So anyway, do I want to go back to my 20s? I don't, but it was very fun revisiting my 20s. So yeah. But I think that for some reason I was lucky in that I had a small, close-knit group of friends where I could completely freely express myself. And I had very accepting parents. I didn't express my whole self, but there wasn't a lot of they're very open to me expressing my ideas about the nature of reality. Not so much the way that I like to express that, let's just say, but I think that made me very comfortable and confident in expressing that. You know, there might have been other things, but being able to express myself in that way. In my safe realm was okay. Not necessarily express it completely out there. So it's that to me, it's that next broadening that circle, expressing it beyond my safe realm. Yeah, expanding that safety net where we can express that truth. But I have noticed too that my daughter is so much happier since stopping going to school. She even started writing a book that's beautiful, but it was like, I think it was fashioned on a book that we read, but it was like, before I went to school, I didn't have to worry about friends. And for an 8-year-old, it's like, oh, it's like that dynamic can be challenging for. Well, it is. It's about trying to find that space where we can express who we are and be accepted for who we are. And it's at that young age that we first learn to shut down aspects of ourselves that make us feel like we don't fit in.
Yeah.
So it's like that wound, that's the, like, that wounding that we're talking about undoing, isn't it?
Mm.
So it's interesting that in the children, even in the older children, that the impact of that can seem to be let go of pretty quickly, pretty easily, which is exciting. And how much joy, that's what I've noticed, how much more laughter, how much more creativity, how much more just impulsive joy has happened in my children's lives over the last couple of weeks. When the busy stops, I think the biggest thing that has made the difference, it's not like there is the friendship dynamic, but it's the rush. It's the children having time to stop and process, and time to let that creativity come up, and time to listen to the trees. And for sensitive children, like, I mean, I don't tend to rush my child, but even for her, even going to school and having to fit into that routine is a rush. And moving from one thing to another throughout the school day is, it's interesting. And she's learnt to read after, like, in 4 weeks after completely resisting it.
Wow.
She's, after completely resisting it for the last 2 years, like, I don't do that. So, it's interesting how we box ourselves into thinking that there's certain realities that have to be certain ways, and what happens when we're forced to question them. And I hope that our pause, sorry, you were about to say something, Eliza. You took a breath to say something.
Yeah. I hope that flowing forward from now, that space of being us, no rush, and learning things if and when we are ready and curious, easily. I so wish that for in my and everybody's future.
Yeah.
In general, I think that those systems that had cracks already are showing their cracks big time now. And I sincerely hope that every individual normal person will get that now, and see the cracks and crumble some systems like the school schedule. You have to learn this by age that. If you're ready or not, that doesn't matter. The schedule says now. I hope that that will change and put the children first and adapt the system to the children instead of the other way around. I wish for that space to be there for a long time after now.
Yeah. I wish so too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
What a lovely chat. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
The same like the previous times, and yet totally different than the previous times, like always.
Mm.
I'm curious to see how all these little dots connect over time.
Yeah, that'll be amazing.
Mm.
Last week, Eliza and I chatted for an hour on the recording, and we turned the recording off and went to talk for another 5 minutes and chatted for another hour. So I'm hesitant to mention any other subjects, or we might just get on a roll again.
Yeah, but also notice the space that is here right now.
Yeah.
And what if we can let that be and sink in and not push it aside by starting another topic now?
No.
Mm.
And in all that beautiful silence, the bird starts screaming in the tree.
We had to get it in somewhere, didn't we? We've got these beautiful smiles on our faces. It reminds me of the first couple of times we got together, Eliza, when all we did was just go into this beautiful silence together. And we're like, well, we can't, how do we just tell people that we want them to come and just sit in silence?
Smile.
Well, that's how.
Yeah.
You've just done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on another note, totally different. Since we're not allowed to go to the hairdressers, what have you girls planned out?
Well, I finally washed my hair today in the bath, because I don't know if you listened last time, Kim, that I have.
No. Oh, but you told me on the phone about your shower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no shower.
Yeah.
So I washed my hair in the bath, which was an interesting experience. I felt like I was going right back in time there. I don't think anything will happen if I don't go to the hairdresser. It'll just get longer and longer and longer, and
Yeah.
nothing will actually change. Or sometimes I just do this. I really actually much prefer it if I just cut my hair like this, then go to the hairdresser and say, can you just cut my hair so it looks like this? And then they do something and blow dry, like clamp it all straight and make it look like this. And then I go, I'm never going to the hairdresser ever again. And then I go, oh, but everyone says it's so fun and nice, I'll go. And every time I come out, I want to cry. So I've just got the same hairstyle for, I don't know.
So for you, it's not a big problem?
No.
Well, I haven't been for at least 6 months, so I may as well just not go. You know, we'll see. I was thinking, oh, it's getting a bit, maybe I'll get an undercut. We can do that at home. We've got clippers. Yeah, I'm not too fussed about it.
Me neither. And I noticed that my curls are starting to come back now that it's not as short as it was. And there's usually something interesting going on with an extra antenna. But I did find something.
Oh, that's fabulous. I like that.
Problem solved. Or maybe not, but let's have some fun while we can.
Yes. Maybe next week is a wear a hat week.
Could be.
Yeah. That's great. It's very spring.
I was going to say that too, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Let's use this time to joke around a bit more.
Yeah, joking's good. Laughing. That's part of what we had to do, was just get together and smile and laugh.
Yeah, and letting go of all the masks, besides the face masks that are required in a medical situation, with all the putting up appearances and keeping up appearances and oh, can we drop that now, please, collectively?
Yes, please.
Just be us and wearing a silly hat.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that would be so good. Be so.
Well, it ties back into the honesty that you started this conversation with, Bianca.
Yeah, I don't think I have too many, unless I have one that's really, really well disguised. I think I've managed to take off most of them. If not, I have to dig. I welcome anyone. God, that's a scary invite, isn't it? It might help me see any masks that I'm continuing to wear that I am unaware of. Good God. I may live to regret that temporarily. Yes.
Well, for me personally, I remember constructing and putting on lots of masks for the first 20-25 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then there was this big bang in my world. And I've been peeling off those layers ever since. Sometimes going fast and then seemingly to stop for a while, and then another big bang happens and some masks just drop off and disappear. And there's, well, let's see what shows up next. And I hope that the totality of me with all my weirdness shows up more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I must say, it saved me so much energy not to have to carry and wear and hold up all those masks. So much more freedom already. And I'd like more of that.
Yeah. And that feeling of joy that just comes up from within, and it comes up into the front of your consciousness, because it's not stuck deep down under all that
To-do lists.
Yeah, to-do lists and masks and pain that you don't want to look at. Yeah.
So what do you think for first time for most people? They have enough yet?
Probably. Probably. What do you think, Kim? How have we put you through the ringer?
Oh, it's been fun.
You're smiling a lot, so.
Yeah, I know. I think I can relate to everything, really, that you've raised and that we've spoken about. I was thinking about the masks. I'm like, I don't know if but that relates to me talking to you about wearing different hats for me in my many, many roles, but wanting to bring that all together, I think, and just being accepting of, I suppose it's the same thing. Which hat am I wearing, and what part of myself will I show in this role? But yeah.
I think it's time for that to bugger off.
Yeah.
Like bluntly.
So that's what that first code that I did, that big one with all the colors, that was all about putting all those bits together.
Yay. And that was for a collective, like, that's not just you, because it's really hard to let go of the mask when everyone else is still holding theirs. Because then suddenly, like, you're the one standing there with no clothes on and everyone's laughing at you. Well, that's what it feels like, because that's what you're doing when you're taking your mask off, is you're bearing yourself in the front of all these other people that have got all of their warrior protection stuff on. It's a really courageous, ballsy thing to do, to go, I'm going to take it off. But if everyone collectively goes, this, I don't, why are we all doing this? Protecting ourselves when actually all we're doing is not actually experiencing ourselves.
Sometimes maybe even, or at least for me it was, imprisoning me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
so
I don't know about you girls.
Gotta go.
I gotta go.
Yay, get some sunshine.
Yeah. Enjoy my Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm so happy we did this.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much for joining us, Kim. And
my pleasure.
How this evolves, metamorphoses into whatever it will become.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.